So as I mentioned a few weeks back, I went to spend a few days with my parents recently when my grandmother passed away. But while we were there, I noticed a bag sitting on my parents' dining room table. It's something I had not seen before, so I picked it up, took it to my dad, and said, "What's this?" Because it looked old, and it was, again, something I'd never seen in my parents' home before, and my dad told me it had belonged to my grandfather. My grandfather passed away a little over 4 years ago, and this was given to him in 1989 when he retired from the steel mill he worked at. And I thought that I would just show it to you today, and we'll expand upon why in a minute. And so here it is. And you might have an idea of what might be in this bag just because of the shape and size of it. This is a camera. So again, when my grandfather retired, he worked, I think, in maintenance at the steel mill. His supervisor at the time gave him this bag to wish him well and whatnot. And inside of this bag, there's a camera, the Canon T50. Now, it should be pointed out here, my grandfather was no photographer. I don't know if he ever took a photo in his entire life. He might have used a video camera once or twice because my dad actually used to own I'm gonna date myself here, a satellite dish shop, an electronics shop that specialized in the gigantic satellite dishes that people used to put in their homes. And so I'm fairly certain my grandfather never actually took a photo in his life. So when his boss at the time gave this to him on retirement, it was a little odd. And so it has basically sat there completely unused since 1989 in this bag. And the bag has definitely weathered over the years, but actually it's still in really nice condition. The one thing that has not weathered particularly well, you may be able to see in there, it's corroded. The batteries have been in there that whole time. I was able to get one of the batteries out at my dad's house, and I cannot get the other one out. I'm gonna have to stab it and pull. That's not gonna be a good thing. And realistically, I don't foresee myself doing any sort of film photography anytime soon, so this will probably end up on a shelf just sort of as a set piece or as a background or just for ambience and as another way to remember my grandfather and this part of him that was not really a part of him, and sort of as a way to show that this was never really used. Again, we've got all the documentation in here. We got the documentation on the flash that he's got included in it, the body cap and the lens cap, and even the original manual for the Canon T50. And I've looked around online. The T50 is actually not a valuable camera or anything, so just leaving it sitting on the shelf, it's not going to hurt anything. You can buy them on eBay for like 15 bucks, which leads us to the point here. The lens that's on this camera is actually an interesting one. As you can see on the front, it's Vivitar. It's a brand that still exists, and specifically it's a Vivitar wide angle 28mm f2.8 lens. 28mm is not exactly what I would consider wide angle, but for this type of film camera, it is decently wide angle. What I'm filming at right now, I'm using the kit lens that actually came on my A6300. It's a 16 to 50mm lens at 16mm, which equates to about 24mm, so it's actually a little wider than what this is going to be. And I kind of mentioned that offhand there because this is an interchangeable lens camera, so I can just screw it off like that. But whatever would I do with this? I bought an adapter. Hello there. I have a visitor. Come on. Go see. Come on. There we go. We've turned the wiggles back on for him. Anyway, like I was saying there, I bought an adapter for this, for my Sony camera, for my Sony a6300. This should work with any of the E-mount cameras, the a6000, 5100, 6500, the a7S, the a7R, things like that. But the one thing this is not going to do is anything automatic. And here it is. So this little piece of metal has a lock and an open on it. It's Photocy branded, FDNEX. I'll have a link to where you can find this. It was like 13 or 14 bucks over on Amazon. And this is going to allow me, hopefully, to bring some new life, as it were, into an otherwise useless lens. All right, a couple of minutes later, I think I've got this worked out. Basically, you line up the red dot on here with the red dot on the lens, push them together, and give it a little bit of finesse, a little bit of a twist. Kind of got to push them together, and then this ring here will twist over, and it seems like it's together. So I think at this point, the next step is to actually go ahead and clean the lens up a little bit, because again, it's been sitting around since 1989, and try it on this camera, the a6300. So we'll do some test shots, some test video, and see how it works. Alrighty, and I've switched over to the Vivitar lens. I mean, looking at it in the monitor I've got over here, it looks clear, it looks crisp. The background does look blurred out, and if I put something up in front of it, I'm gonna have to manually focus this. But there you go. This can get decently close to the lens. I'm gonna say about 5 inches away, something like that. That's about as close as I can focus, and then give it a little focus back, and it's roughly back on me now. It is a little bit tighter than the other lens that I was using, which means I'm having to kind of squat down to do this, but if I back up a little bit, I could put more of myself in the front. Anyway, the point of all this being that I was able to take this lens that was basically just something that I found out of my family's treasure trove from my grandparents and turn it into something that could potentially be useful. If you're a new filmmaker and you're just trying to get started, these adapters exist for whatever camera you're using pretty much. In my case, the lens that I'm using is a Vivitar lens, but it's made for a Canon FD mount. And so I went on Amazon and I searched FD to Sony E-mount, and like I said, $14 or so, and I got an adapter. Everything has to be done manually, but so far the quality looks really impressive to me. You'll have to let me know what you think. And again, it doesn't have to be the Canon FD mount. You can search on eBay for these older cameras, old Canon lenses, old Nikon lenses, Pentax, whatever else you want to use, and get a fully manual adapter to make it work with your camera. Just looking around with this a little bit, it looks like this lens actually is missing quite a few coatings, so there's going to be some weirdness when you're using it in other scenarios, like lens flaring is going to be a big issue with this. But again, for $14 to get a new lens for this camera instead of buying another one, I'm a big fan of that, even though I will have to manually focus it. It should be really nice for those really cool up-close product shots where you want the whole background blown out so you can show off whatever super cool toy you're playing with. Combine all that with a slider and a video fluid head so you can pan around and think, and just for a couple extra bucks, you've got a pretty decent little setup here. You're talking 14 bucks for the adapter and probably another 15 for a camera with a lens already attached that you're just not going to use the camera. And here's a couple of shots that I took of my son. Since he's in there watching TV, I'm going to go in and just take some photos of him and I'll show them to you right here. Aside from the fact that everything has to be done manually, it's really cool to be able to take an older lens like this, a lens that's effectively older than a lot of you guys out there, and be able to reuse it and make it useful again. So you'll have to let me know what you think about the quality, what you think about the lens, what you think about the idea of repurposing these older lenses down in the comment section below. But that's going to wrap this video up for today. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also click the like button if you did like this video. I'm not going to be using this lens all the time from now on, just occasionally for those one-off really interesting shots that I need to get. But thank you guys as always for watching. I'll leave a link to some adapters down below as well. I'll see you again next time.